Hello, everyone. It it really is quite funny how your opinion about things change from when you're a child to when you become an adult and take on responsibilities. Your life changes. You might get married. You may have kids. Might have a mortgage, have a car, payments you're making, etc., etc. When you're a child and you're living in a make-believe fantasy world and superheroes are a big part of your life, then you are unquestionably in support of superheroes. They can do no wrong. You always root for them. You see the destruction of private and commercial property as a natural byproduct of the hero's efforts to stop, world takeover by these villains. And you root for these heroes because in your mind what they're doing is correct. What you don't see or what you don't think about as a child is what would happen if that property that is being destroyed by these various battles, if that property was yours, if the cars that are being picked up and flipped over by the Hulk, or thrown all over the place by Superman because he's in the middle of stopping some serious world threat. What if those properties were yours? What if you had an outstanding mortgage on some house that was obliterated, or you were almost at the last payment on that beautiful car that you bought, which no longer exists? How would you feel? Well, I think the answer is you would feel pretty crap. But as a child, of course, you never consider that. And my opinion about how these superhero battles are portrayed in comic books and movies, well, it's shifting. My entire opinion about superheroes, in fact, is slowly evolving over time. I think I am a little less forgiving than I was before. Now, of course, these are characters that are written by writers. I completely understand. But it is interesting that as a concept, we are willing to accept all this mass destruction when the destruction isn't directly linked to ourselves personally. We see other people's, and I know this is all make believe. I get it. This is not a, it's not a lecture on public morals, but it's the idea behind what it is that we see and what it is that we accept as children compared to what impact these same ideas have on us as adults. And the reason why I'm thinking like this is because, in all honesty, my opinion about superheroes has evolved over a number of years. I don't hold them in the same regard that I did before. I mean, at times I've been guilty of sympathizing with supervillains. When you read their backstory and you actually understand what their motives are, you even sometimes feel pity for them. The way that they are treated by certain superheroes and the way that they're treated by the public in general, of course, you can understand there would be a lot of. I'm not justifying the bad things that the supervillains do. That's not what my intention is, and I know that a bad person has to be stopped so that they don't end up hurting other people. But oftentimes, these supervillains don't actually hurt other people. They just have battles with these superheroes. They destroy some property. They threaten a city, but they don't actually physically hurt people. I mean, think about this. How many times have you actually seen in comic books or movies a super powered, I don't know, like Doctor Doom, Magneto, uh, Brainiac? Um, I mean, take any really super powered supervillain going after individual normal people or hurting them en masse. Well, you don't really. The supervillain comes, makes a few threats, they engage with superheroes, boom, you have a fight. It's the damage that occurs during that fight and the utter disregard that many of these superheroes seem to demonstrate, which makes you think, well, are they any better, really, in some respects, to the villains that they're fighting? I I started thinking about this a lot more a few days ago after I read issue 35 of Marvel Super Action starring the Avengers. one particular character, a superhero, surprise, surprise, in this comic book was acting in a really bizarre fashion in terms of his irreverence towards public property, or rather, property belonging to other people. And I thought to myself, how strange is this? How can you respect or look up to a character that has complete and utter disregard for property belonging to a normal member of the public? So this particular issue of Marvel Super Action revolves around the identity theft of the Black Panther. A white supremacist basically has taken over the role and is going around attacking people, trying to create a bad image of the Black Panther, because the Black Panther has actually been abducted by the Sons of the Serpent, some secret supervillain society, who want to create a race riot. So once the white supremacist who has taken over the identity of Black Panther, once he's finished doing all the damage, the Sons of the Serpent will reveal the Black Panther to be a black person, and that apparently is going to cause race riots across the country. Now, the Avengers are also dumbfounded because they know what T'Challa, the real Black Panther, is like. So when these things happen, they set about trying to capture him to find out what's going on. Anyhow, in one of the captions, you can see that they're trying to corner the fake Black Panther, and you see over here in this panel, the Goliath character basically climbing up the side of the building, trying to corner this fake Black Panther. Now, straight away, when you see this, you think to yourself, you're climbing up this tall building. You could you weigh a lot. You could fall down and hurt the people below on the street. You should think about that. Furthermore, you could crack a number of windows. You could break the mortar and the brick. There's so many things to consider. You're a very heavy, giant superhero. You should be thinking about all the damage that you're potentially causing and what would happen if you fall down. But this character doesn't. And lo and behold, as expected, this Goliath character just basically breaks the window of this completely random stranger he's never met. He doesn't know whose home he is damaging, but basically damages it just to grab a hold of this Black Panther figure. I mean, he's sticking his hand through somebody else's property. Who's going to pay for that? Does he even think about this? On top of that, what if there's someone else there that perhaps is hidden from your view? You can't see them, and you have all this glass, all these shards of glass now in the air because your hands exploded through somebody else's window. I mean, that's criminal damage. In anybody else's book, that is criminal damage. But these so-called superheroes tend to get away with it. I mean, look at it from this point of view. Even the Black Panther imposter hasn't got in through breaking that window. And in fact, I imagine that before Goliath did what he did, there was probably very little damage to the property, and certainly not to the extent of what has been caused by this big, massive, giant hand going through a window. Rather unsurprisingly, Goliath loses his grip and takes a tumble and crashes into the pavement below. Which, if you think about it, if you really, really think about it, it's horrendous. I mean, there's the damage to the poor person's flat, and then you fall down. I mean, the potential endangerment to life on the ground is unimaginable. That pavement could have been covered by spectators who were looking up, seeing this giant man walk, climbing up the side of a building. That would be the natural reaction. Police could have been there, ambulances, a whole bunch of people could have been there, thinking that, oh well, he's a superhero and he knows what he's doing, but clearly he doesn't, because he drops from a great height and lands in the pavement. So you have all this destruction, this wanton disregard for human life, while either wanton disregard or you're so stupid that you can't even think 2 steps ahead as to what could potentially happen, and you call yourself a hero. This is insane. It appears as if the heroes are bigger menaces than the actual villains themselves. I mean, let's look at this, shall we? How much damage has this Black Panther imposter caused in comparison to what this one Avenger has done in the space of 2 or 3 panels? I mean, it's unbelievable. This would be in the amount of hundreds of thousands, right? If not millions. Okay, perhaps that's too much. Hundreds of thousands at least, though, anyway. And again, in the next panel, which I won't show, but take my word for it, they go back to Avengers base. There's no hint of any repercussions. There's no insurance companies calling up. There's no police statements being taken like, what the hell were you doing? Did you realize that people could have been killed by your reckless actions? No, nothing of the sort. And this raises a lot of serious questions. What sort of a world is this where people will blindly worship these heroes, but at the same time have complete disdain for supervillains, as they should, but who clearly, if you think about it in comparison, are not doing half, not even 1/10 of the damage that these superheroes are causing? What about that poor chap or that poor lady whose flat you have destroyed by pushing your hand through their glass window? I mean, who's going to pay for that? And who is going to pay for the damage you've caused to the pavement? Thank heavens there were no people. Can you imagine an old lady walking with her little doggy at night time or daytime, whenever this is? I forget now. Anyway, walking, and she looks up, and there's this big, massive mountain of flesh, and that's the last thing she sees before she's squashed to death. I mean, horrendous. But that's exactly what could have happened. Who takes responsibility for that? Well, clearly not Goliath or the Avengers. And this really would have put a very bad taste in my mouth. I was not pleased, to say the least. And again, it puts you into the mindset where you really do begin to question that, yes, you have superheroes and supervillains, and heroes help people and villains tend to aggravate people. Fair enough. But in the grand scheme of things, who is actually causing the more damage, the more destruction? Who's doing it? And to me, it seems pretty clear that it's these so-called superheroes. And I say so-called because sometimes you really do have to. You have to think about. I mean, I suppose what it comes down to is this: is it better to have a smart supervillain who doesn't really bother the average person, or is it better? Or oh no, let me rephrase that. Is it far worse to have a smart supervillain who doesn't really bother about the average citizen or person on the street? Or is it worse to have a superhero who is either so stupid that they can't see what's going to happen if their actions should go wrong, or who basically don't give a damn what would happen as long as they get their man or their woman, right? As long as they get the job done, they don't care how many houses are destroyed, how many people end up in hospital, because they have a job to do. It's a scary thought. And anyway, like I said, my perception of superheroes, supervillains is changing. In fact, sometimes the lines are blurred. They really are. Just in the representation of these heroes. I was reading a comic book a little while ago. I think it was Marvel Siege. I think it was, and I'm pretty sure it was based in Latveria, the home of Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom was fighting against the Avengers. I think he was doing quite well, and then the Avengers called in the Sentry. And the Sentry, of course, is basically, Superman on steroids as far as Marvel is concerned, right? The powers of 1,000 exploding suns, sorry. And so the Sentry just goes ballistic. I can't recall if the Sentry was in the Void mode or just Sentry mode. Anyway, he comes up, bashes Doctor Doom, humiliates him completely by ripping off his mask. And then the Avengers are standing there, like a bunch of, I don't know, like gangsters, basically saying to him that, do this again and see what happens. And I thought to myself, yes, I understand. Doctor Doom is a villain, fair enough. But when has Doctor Doom or a bunch of his villain pals done that to the Avengers in such a fashion? No, that they haven't. This utter humiliation. That's the stuff of villains, right? That's what villains should be doing to superheroes, not superheroes doing that to villains. It just, I don't know. It's weird. The world is weird, and perhaps comic books are a representation of the times in which we live, where the lines between hero and villain is truly blurred. Anyhow, that's my ramble on for today. Thank you for your